am I doing now? Sorry. Okay. Corporate governance has been discussed for the last 2 days. The reason why that slide is there, and that's from the OECD, is that what is happening in Kerala is not in fact the only place where this is taking place. Many other countries are realizing that there is need to improve efficiency and transparency in SOEs, because that inevitably will result into gains for the respective countries. What is sustainability? Sustainability depends upon which particular field you are referring to. But in this particular case, I'm quoting what a report in Europe said in 1987, that development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So therefore, insofar as the SOEs are concerned, we are talking about SOEs which will be sustainable. SOEs which is not just think of putting bread on the table today, but what will happen in the future. And how are they going to be able to do that? They should not just focus on the so-called financial aspects of corporate practice. They should also focus on those non-financial aspects of a company. And what are these which are non-essential? Those are the ones which will be regarded as social, ethical, and environmental issues. In other words, the SOE should not just focus on the bottom line, one bottom line. They should be able to go beyond that. They should look at the social, ethical, and environmental issues, because these can no longer be regarded just as a by the way. That have now taken center stage. And ladies and gentlemen, the three words you see on the screen in bold, those are the three words I would like you to remember. If you can forget everything that I may say in the next 10 minutes, I would like you just to remember those three words: people, planet, profit. People, planet, profit. They cannot be considered individually. They have to be taken together. That is the motto or the vision for SOEs, that in fact, they should look at how has their business impacted on the communities, the societies in which they operate, the societies, the communities in which they draw their employees, their suppliers, and they are the customers. What has the company done to ensure that the earth will still be there when their grandchildren are ready to face the world? And then they should be able to say that it's financially sustainable as a company. In other words, it's still making a profit. But the profit should not be at the expense of degrading the world. The profit should not only be a profit to sustain, to obviously provide, as a colleague of mine, I think yesterday or this morning said, even the parastatals have to make money. Yes, it's correct. They have to make money. There has to be a good return on the investment, the accountants tell us. But I'm saying, for an SOE, that profit has to go beyond mere figures. As someone I think this morning said, you have to go beyond the balance sheet. So it's people, planet, and profit. And that's what referred to as the triple bottom line, referring to one, the economic performance. And economic performance is not financial performance. Financial performance should talk about the costs of doing business. Economic performance is what is the result of your economic performance. In other words, as the example I've given there, if you give electricity or you bring water nearer to the village, the cost of taking that electricity, the cost of taking that water is your financial performance. If you reduce it, you are doing very well under the last P, profit. But economic performance will be taken in terms of the effect that particular cost has on the society. The women who draw water walking long distances will now draw water nearer. That is economic performance. Social performance, this is where now you have terms like the corporate social investment, corporate social responsibility, and corporate citizenship. Clearly meaning that each corporate, each institution, more so the SOE, must take a much broader responsibility to the stakeholders, not just the share owners, not just those who have put money in the organization, but the society at large in which it operates. And the final one on those three-legged bottom line is environmental performance. Sustainability of an SOE must ensure that the environment is preserved for future generations. Companies must cease activities that cause harm. They must ensure that they have very little impact on the environment. The king I'm referring to there is not from the Bible. That's Mervyn King of South Africa says, best practical environmental option. These other slides just re-emphasize that a company should no longer just think in terms of how to pay good salaries, how to make profits, but they ought to take into account various aspects. For instance, in Zambia, under health, we have the Public Health Act and the Factories Act, under which companies ought to ensure that issues like HIV/AIDS should not just be left to the Ministry of Health, but each company must ensure that they take care of that. Safety. The safety of employees must be priority number one for any enterprise. We have in Zambia the Environmental Protection and Pollution Control Act, which tells us how to ensure that the environment is not spoiled. Now, we were asked to provide suggestions on how to strengthen the SOE policies. In the next two or so slides, this is my suggestions. The first one, constitutional provisions. And I'm quoting my neighbor here. In South Africa, under the South African Constitution, there is a provision which says everyone has a right to an environment that is not harmful to their wealth or well-being, and to have the environment protected for the benefit of the present and future generations. So you can therefore put in the Constitution a provision that will help strengthen the SOE. A gentleman once I met in Paris made this particular statement there in answering how to strengthen the SOE. Bring diversity at the head table. In other words, you need a well-functioning board of directors where there's diversity in terms of experience and perspectives. But it's not just a question of bringing people from different corners of the world or from different businesses, but they have to have the experience that is required. I'm running out of time. In the next 3 minutes, another idea will be have a pool of directors where then you can choose those who come to be appointed as board of directors. Board charter, very critical. Every SOE must have board charter, which defines the mission of the board. It's a do's and don'ts of processes and procedures, very, very important. I should end by mentioning this, which my sister mentioned as well this morning. It's a shareholder performance agreement or shareholder compact. This is very critical. The government should enter into an agreement with the SOE, pointing out what they are expecting the SOE to deal with. Then it will help you when you come to evaluate. Sometimes it's called statement of corporate intent. And finally, let me just co-chair to the end there. One of the major problems that there is in the administration of SOEs is the confusion between the government as a share owner and the regulator. You can't mix the two. You can't be both a regulator and a share owner. So normally you ought to have said the Minister of Finance as a shareholder and it has a relationship as shareholder. Then if it's an SOE in transport, for instance, then you have the Ministry of Transport to provide the regulation to that particular institution, just like any other institution. And in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, policies for SOEs must fully incorporate corporate social responsibility, because under corporate social responsibility, what is expected of all enterprises, small, medium, or large, is that the enterprises should take due account of the need to protect the environment, public health and safety, and generally to conduct their activities in a manner contributing to the wider goal of sustainable development. And I thank you.
I have, both are there, but somebody should do this. Can?
Somebody is coming.
Yes. Mr. Chairman, friends and comrades, brothers and sisters, it's a Herculean task to bring the world into 15 minutes or 10 minutes, because I represent the World Federation of Trade Unions. We have been saying, hearing this, where should I? This one. We have been saying business of business is business. It is none of your business is interfere in my business, mind your own business, I will do my business. What we say by this, it is not business as usual. It's a different business involving all who are involved in the business. That is called participation. That is called what we want to bring it in the public sector. Then there are different definitions are there. I don't go into the time factor. In United States, these are all started like government-sponsored enterprises. It was private companies owned by stockholders. Then go to Europe. A lot of us said already. I'll concentrate only on those issues which are required to be concentrated. There was a massive nationalization in the 20th century after World War. Many things have come. 70s, it has started going out. 80s, it has gone up further. Japan, they had also something, it is going away. China is worth mentioning. 17,000 partially owned enterprises, 200 are major, they produce 45% of the production. Number of industries are there. In fact, by this, overproduction is minimized and surplus is distributed. A number of advantages are there in this allocation of resources and all. Customer market is directed by the international demand, but still they are able to maintain that. That's the most, using public sector. That's the most important thing. 800 Chinese SOEs are in Africa, inactive, in every country of Africa. Russia is following the same model, but with difficulties. Now, India, only one, I'll come back to India afterwards. In May 2006, World Bank report says 240 PSUs outside financial sector produce 95% of India's coal, 66% of refined oil, 83% of natural gas, 32% of finished steel, 35% of aluminum, 27% of nitrogenous fertilizers. Railways is the biggest commercial employer in the world, banks, etc. Then, what happened? Israel is another, where the government controls 90% of land, regulates, but there are a lot of discriminatory laws against the Arab citizens, etc. Come to another important thing is Yugoslavia. Is not operating. Okay. Hello. Yugoslavia is gone. Okay. That is, it is gone, of course. Yugoslavia itself is gone, and it is no more Yugoslavia. And then they had a self-management system. As you all know, there is a self-management system. There were good and bad of self-management system. The good of it was a self-management system. It's going slow, I don't know, it's not, whole thing is not, one by one it comes, okay? Okay. This was a partnership between the workers and enterprise, and this is Venezuela, it has come to. Oh. My time is, okay. They said no need of capitalists. workers can run the enterprises. Sense of solidarity within the workers was missing there. That is why this question of Venezuela came. Co-management system is Venezuela, an improvement over the Yugoslavian system, a partnership between the workers and enterprises and society, which was missing in self-management system, a society. Article number 102 of the Bolivarian Constitution speaks of certain things. It's in my paper, I don't want to read it here. So the Venezuelan model is something which is to be thought of by us also. And we go further, then factories under the workers' control, there is a film on that document. Workers collectively is much better than working for someone else, like being a slave to someone. This is the philosophy. Part of general struggle of Bolivarian revolution for socialism. Another important thing is Argentina. There is a movement called Recovered Factory Workers Movement. FACTA, that's an independent workers cooperative, a form of resistance to harsh neoliberalism. 220 recovered factories and self-management factories generated $300 million in 1 year during the difficult period. India public sector, it is not new, everybody thinks. AICC Bombay 1931 promulgated a program, Industrial Policy Resolution 1956, I don't explain. United States General Assembly passed a resolution indicating role of public sector in developing countries. Part 4 of the Constitution, it's called Directive Principle, it says many things. Even Birla and Tata plan also speaks of public sector. A number of objectives are there. I am not going into all the details. Performance of public sector in 2007 and 8, it is increased over the previous year. Investment increased by 8.3%, figures are there. Capital employed, turnover, everything has gone up. Time. Performance of public bank, it is not given here. Oh. It is not given here. But the banks also in the last 3 years, where this crisis was there, everybody has said it here, but the details are given here. For example, only one or two things I'll say. The total deposits increased, it has increased by a lot of things, and it come to 31,12,748 crores. And total assets have also increased similarly in 3 years. Similarly, in the net profit, etc., banks have done a wonderful job on that. Performance Kerala, I don't want to explain because everybody who is here. Now let us look at what is to be done. On that I have something more to say. Everybody's thought about political will. A lot of hurdles have been created to the public sector in the past. What are those hurdles? As you all know, there was a structural adjustment program of betterment institutions. World Bank gave loan. For example, one state near here, Karnataka I am from, where the Sikh public sector industry was offered a loan by the government, World Bank. 2 conditions were attached. One condition was reduce the people by VRS. Number 2, privatize it later on. These were the 2 conditions. Unfortunately, the then government has accepted both the conditions. Today the company is closed. This is what the World Bank loan has resulted in. This is what the system which we are seeing. So the level playing we are talking about, this is what the banks have got. Many more things can be quoted about the better duty institutions. Only one thing I would like to say on political will. This is a quotation which is essential. The essence of neoliberalism is the removal of all barriers to the accumulation of capital. Linked to this is the elimination of public sphere, and with it, the assumption that government has any role other than police, military, and prison guards. It also means overthrow of notion that individuals can and should rely on government government the needs of the people, and most especially the needs of the most impoverished. In this context, we can understand that the attack on public education, public health, and attack on public distribution system, public transportation system, and public anything. What we are now witnessing is the 19th century re-emergence of social Darwinism. Social Darwinism is the so-called survival of the fittest, which is a jungle law. What we want is the welfare of the weakest, which is the human law. Now going to the next thing is, what we see in that is the financial socialism has come now in the last 3 years. What is financial socialism? Financial socialism is socializing the profits and privatizing socializing the losses and privatizing the profits. This is what we see in the last 3 years. So that we don't want in public sector to happen. That's why we are saying. And now coming back to the remedies or suggestion, autonomy with accountability, which we know, I need not explain it. Only question is, sorry, I am in the end, last four. Okay, going in a high speed, not to crash. Okay, then the second is distance the government from day-to-day activities. It doesn't mean government should have proactive measures. Unfortunately, the central public sector, we don't find the proactive measures now. A number of hurdles we are seeing it. In fact, there has been a campaign by all the trade unions to defend, extend, democratize public sector. We have been seeing in the last few years, disinvestment has become the sword on the public sector all the time. Every explanation has been given, I don't want to say that. The entire trade union movement, it is only for selling the family silver. Selling the family silver is brought in the form of disinvestment, that is there. Then come to the financial restructuring. A number of financial restructuring suggestions given by the IMF and World Bank are not correct. There are many other things to be done indigenously. Technological forecasting, Technological forecasting and business forecasting, this morning it was talked about. There is one important thing. Next is compensation for discharging social obligation as counterparts in the private sector don't discharge. Many private sector people don't discharge any social obligations. A lot of talk is going on about corporate social responsibility. According to me, recently I told in ILO also in the same month, according to me, it is CSR means cruel social reality and not corporate social responsibility. What we are now seeing everywhere is cruel social reality. We can prove from country to industry, and the place to place. That is what is happening. So CSR is not supposed to be a remedy. I differ with all those things because we have got a complete evidence on that. Then the economic efficiency doesn't mean reduce the financial burden as a part of fiscal stabilization or fiscal prudence. Employment policy is another important thing. What we always say,